Okay, so 7.2, this is specific motivation. So we talked about general motivation in 7.1, this is specific motivation. So the objective for today is students will be able to describe classic research in specific motivations. So hunger would be one type of specific motivation. And here is what, due to research, we have found out about hunger and motivating. Is first the physiology. So this is what happens to your body when it is hungry. So you have glucose, which is your body sugar, and it is regulated by insulin. And what happens is if there is a drop in your blood sugar, it's going to send a message to your hypothalamus, which regulates hunger. To eat, right? Sometimes you might get a little shaky even, and that's what's telling you, body, that you need to eat. And you have two parts of your hypothalamus. You have your lateral hypothalamus, and this is what's going to tell you that you're hungry. So this is what would be triggered if you have a drop of glucose. And then you have your ventromedial hypothalamus, which is going to tell you that you are full. The other part of physiology when it comes to hunger is everybody has a set point, and this is your personal stable weight. So this is where you are when you are your normal level of activity, your normal eating habits. This is where your weight would be. And then your metabolic rate is going to be the rate at which you expend energy. Or in other words, how quickly you can burn calories. Some people might have a high basal metabolic rate, and some people might have low. Take a look over here. These just go over the different hormones that deal with eating. We know that insulin is what controls your glucose. We know that, so that's going to be right over here in your pancreas. We know that leptin is in fat cells, and it can cause the brain to increase metabolism and decrease hunger. It's leptin right there. Orexin is a hunger triggering hormone secreted by the hypothalamus, so it's up here. So it's going to be your lateral hypothalamus. Ghrelin is your empty stomach that tells you I'm hungry, so signals to the brain. Opsitine is also by the stomach that tells you you're full. And then PYY is a digestive tract hormone that says I'm not hungry, signals to the brain. So those are just kind of interesting. The psychology of hunger. And so the why do we eat? This is by far the most fascinating and so accurate statement. Carbohydrates and serotonin. Carbohydrates release serotonin in your blood, which then has a calming effect, which is why people may eat when they are stressed, and especially like to have maybe something that is high in carbohydrates, and that can be sugar and or things like chips and bread. Either one is a carbohydrate. Spicy foods in hot climates. People eat spicy foods in really hot climates, think like places near the equator, because it can slow the growth of bacteria. And this is why some hot climates tend to like spicier foods, and people that have been born and raised there tend to eat spicier foods. Also, an interesting fact is that pregnant women, if they get sick while they're pregnant, will increase at week 10. And this is because when the baby is developing major systems. So it's a way to protect the baby. And remember, before this current time, we didn't really have pregnancy tests. So some women may not have known that they were pregnant until they got sick. The ecology of eating. That is this example right over here. The idea being the smaller the portion size, the smaller you will eat. So if you start off with a big plate and put a bunch on it, you will eat more. If you have a small plate, you're going to eat less. Eating disorders. We have anorexia nervosa, which is not eating enough calories. And still believing they're overweight. Bulimia nervosa is a binge and purge. You don't have to do it by working out. You could do it by excessive exercise. Would also be a binge and purge. So you eat a lot of food and then purge it. Binge eating disorder is just when you go on the binges and no purges. A couple other things that we should discuss here with this is for eating disorders, we tend to see a larger impact on women. But we also have seen that genetics and culture can play a role. So what we used to blame is magazines. Now people blame a lot of social media and the fact that people are constantly seeing these unrealistic or altered body images, which gives them a negative body image. Okay, obesity. Obesity and weight control. Some of the factors is that there is a historically speaking, we wanted to eat fat to protect against famine. Or starving to death. So that's why fat tastes good, right? However, we know that this is going to shorten your lifespan. Some of the social effects behind obesity is discrimination, and depression. The physiology of fat cells is really interesting. Once fat cells increase, they never decrease. So look at that right here. So this is somebody who was never obese, their amount of fat cells. Once you become obese, this is your fat cells and this is how big they get. When you lose weight, you reduce. They do not go away. So it never decreases. It's always going to stay the same. They're just smaller cells. Metabolism is the fat cells, is your rate of burning energy. And one thing to know is that fat cells need less energy. So the more fat cells you have, the less calories you actually need to intake because fat does not need that many calories to survive. Genetic factor, again, it is going to impact girls more than anything. Sleep, you need 9.5 hours every night. Okay, the less sleep you get, the more likely you are to be obese. And a social factor, you are more likely to be obese if you have a friend who is. Oops, have a friend. Okay. Losing weight, really it has to be a lifestyle change, right? You have to change the way that you live your life and what you do. All right, next specific need is going to be sex. And then first we're going to talk about the physiology of sex. So this is the sexual response cycle. You are going to need to know this. The sexual response cycle has 4 stages. This is excitement. It's going to be increase of blood flow. Plateau. So this is where you're going to kind of even out. So this is going to be a high increase. Now you're going to kind of zen out a little bit. Orgasm is going to be defined by muscle spasms, followed by some type of release. And then refractory period is known as the recovery period. So for males especially, they have to go through refractory period before they can engage in sex again. Hormones, you have 2 types of estrogen. You can have, or 2 types of estrogen, sorry. You have 2 types of hormones. Estrogen and testosterone you find in both male and female. However, estrogen is responsible for female sex characteristics. And testosterone is responsible for male characteristics. What motivates us for sex? Well, a couple of different things. First, biological influences. Are you sexually mature? Your hormones and sexual orientation. The next is going to be your psychological, exposed to stimulating conditions, sexual fantasies, and then finally you have social cultural influences. How strong is your family and society values, religious and personal, cultural mediation or expectations, and media. Okay, the need to belong. This is aid in survival. Being part of a group has always helped in survival. Ostracism is social exclusion, so being left out. Now we have this whole version of cyber ostracism, and that's being excluded because of something you did or posted online. What we know is that both of these things can lead to what we call anterior cingulate cortex, which is areas of the brain responsible for physical pain. So that when you are being ostracized, it physically hurts, or the area of their brain that shows physical pain is also being lit up. So it can show you how bad it can hurt when you feel like somebody is ostracizing you.